Well, hello and welcome to episode 171 of Drink the Movies. I'm Brian here, as always, with Michaela. And Michaela, if you go back in time, there was a little film. It's called Mad Max. Came out in 1979, and it spawned I don't know, kind of like this crazy world, right? It was kind of encapsulated, right, in the late 70s and early 80s, and then Mad Max was a product of that time. Fast forward to what was it? I think 2015, Mad Max gets resurrected by George Miller to bring us a kind of a continuation of the story, kind of a recreation of the story, and blew everyone away with Fury Road. But
Mm,
how do we get to Fury Road? We're gonna have to take a step back and talk about Furiosa.
that's right. I don't know. So were you a Mad Max person before Fury Road even or before Furiosa? What was your experience to the world down under that was devastated and
Fair, yeah.
terrifying?
I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily call myself like a Mad Max person or like Mad Max kid. I think because it came out in 1979. You and I were both born in 1981. Not to date ourselves too much here, but it seemed like by the time like we would have been old enough to start consuming like Mad Max type stories, it was almost like forgotten, right? Or something that, wasn't still ongoing. It wasn't old enough to be considered a classic yet, but it wasn't like new enough to be in everyone's mind still. So I largely missed out on Mad Max. I mean, I saw them, but it wasn't like something that I kept going back to.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, I remember I was a huge Tina Turner fan.
Okay,
Which
okay.
seems completely unrelated, but I'll get there.
Yeah.
But I was a big Tina Turner fan, and so like in the early '90s, she came out with she did this massive tour. My dad and I stayed uh, we sat in the sun for 13 hours to go watch this tour that she did. It was amazing. It
Hmm,
was
hmm.
so great, and she had this documentary biography about her life, and there was a big piece of it where they talk about the role that she played in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And that was the first time that I really had been exposed to it because
Okay.
I do remember seeing a scene as a child where he's got that Mad Max character has got that Visio Finder thing where you click it and you like view
Hmm.
it and all these kids are like remember this and this was the life that once was. But other than that, I don't remember it. But then I was like, "Ooh, Tina Turner," and they went on and on about when they created that character. They wanted someone who acted like a total badass, like Tina Turner. And I was like, "Huh, I should watch that." But I was like 14, and didn't I didn't love the idea of post-apocalyptic. That just seemed really harsh for me.
Okay.
So it wasn't until a little bit later.
You were too delicate for the world of
I was
Mad
a little
Max.
delicate for it. Well, I did remember seeing. I watched the beginning. I think it was the beginning of Thunderdome where they show the scene in the original Mad Max where the kid dies, and I was
Mm,
like, "Nope, I'm not
not
okay." It's not
not for
even
you.
it's not even super visual. Like George Miller gets way more visceral later in
True.
his later work, right? But I was like, nope, not gonna watch it. So I was a little bit older when I watched it, but that was my first like inclination to maybe see this Mad Max saga at the very beginning.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, and then like I said, we fast forward to 2015. Mad Max is resurrected in some sort of recreation, and we're introduced to a character by the name of Furiosa in that film. But who is Furiosa? Where did she come from? How did she get there? We're gonna find out. But first, we need a cocktail. So let's do this, Michaela. Let's go ahead, grab a bottle of mezcal. We'll make up some cinnamon syrup, and we'll be right back to whip up this week's drink.
So Brian, this week's cocktail is actually kind of special because we didn't find it. We made it up.
We
You
did.
and me.
You did. You
Well,
did.
you helped. You helped. Come on now.
You
Take
you
credit where credit is due.
you threw the ingredients onto the table and then we crafted a cocktail from them. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we do like to do that sometimes. It depends kind of on a couple of things. Is A, like how much cocktail inspiration there is in the movie, but B, honestly, peek behind the curtain here. It greatly depends on how much extra time we have like between movies because a movie every week, it gets to be a bit. So, having time to come up with a cocktail is also an important ingredient in the cocktail
That's
making
true.
itself.
Very true. Very true. But this, I don't know. I felt very inspired. What we wanted to do something that paid homage to the Green Place, because that was kind of like this land of milk and honey in the first Fury Road, right? It was where they were trying
Hmm.
to get to, and it was all about the first this first movie, Fury Road. I'm going to call it the first one, even though it's really the fourth Mad Max film. But it left so many open questions, and I wanted to know so much about how the Green Place came to be, what actually happened, because you find out later that the Green Place is not really what you thought it was. I'm not going to spoil it. Go listen to go watch Fury Road. I don't want to spoil that, but it's interesting, and I really wanted it to get some like closure as a viewer there, and I was so
Hmm.
glad that we were able to do that with Furiosa. And turns out there are peaches in the Green Place, and they
Yeah.
look beautiful. They look like these red, like big giant apples, but they're definitely peaches. It's very visually stunning, and so I wanted to make sure that we did something like that with this cocktail.
That's right. Absolutely. They are visually stunning, and you have to take the one that's in the most dangerous place to reach and get, even though the camera pulls back and there's like 1,000 peaches. But maybe we'll get into that. So, yeah, we came up with this cocktail. We are calling it the Peach Vengeance, which is a play on that peach, and also one of the chapter titles here in the film. And definitely it goes into Furiosa's vengeance because this thing is spicy, it is peachy, it is smoky, and it's how Furiosa lives her life out in the wasteland. So let's go ahead and make one of these up, Michaela. And the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need some cinnamon simple syrup. It's really, really easy to make. So it's just a plain simple syrup, equal parts sugar and water. Go ahead and bring that to a boil and throw in a couple of cinnamon sticks. So I did three in mine. Bring it to a boil, dissolve the sugar, and then I let it sit for an hour because I wanted to get a lot of the cinnamon into it. I wanted it to be really spicy. And then actually, I jarred it into a mason jar after it cooled down with the cinnamon stick still in it. So it's going to keep getting spicier and spicier the longer you leave those in there. So go ahead and play with that as much as you want. I want mine to be super fiery. So going to take a quarter ounce of that syrup, and you're going to put in 2 or 3 slices of peach into a shaker tin. Go ahead and muddle that. It's going to, bust up the peaches, get the oil out of the skin. It's going to get the juice out of the peach slices. And then you're going to be good to go for the rest of the cocktail. Take a half ounce of lime juice, a half ounce of triple sec or Grand Marnier or Cointreau. If your peaches are not juicy enough for you, you don't have peaches, you live far away from South Carolina, Georgia, where peaches are, your peaches aren't quite up to snuff, you can toss in some peach liqueur, like peach tree or, any of those things if you wanted to give it a little bit of boost. But basically a half ounce of that orange or the peach liqueur, and then 2 ounces of mezcal. Michaela, last lobby bar episode earlier this week, we talked a little bit about the differences between mezcal and tequila, but the key thing that you need to know here is that mezcal has a smoky flavor to it, so it's going to give you a little bit of smoke. They're kind of on the nose and in the flavor. Add some ice, shake it, strain it into I like an ice cube filled rocks glass for my margarita plays. You can do salt if you want. I went straight with mine. I figured the salt was going to kind of get in the way. You could do like a smoky sea salt. That would probably be really good on this if you wanted to play around with that. You could do like a black sea salt. That would be really cool
Mm.
looking in the jar or in the glass, and sip and enjoy. Furiosa in a glass, Michaela. This was a good one.
This is really exciting. I love peaches, and one of the things that I was really hoping that this cocktail would do, and I'm glad to say it succeeded, was it wasn't just the flavor of peach, but that kind of viscosity, that syrupness,
Mhm.
the unctuousness that's in a peach. And it depends again, you said it. It really kind of depends on the peaches that you get. You really want to make sure that they're not that they're nice and ripe, that they're not underripe, because it's not going to have the same I don't know, mouth feel.
Right.
Because when you muddle those, you really want to make sure that you get some of the juices, and it needs to break down that way. But this is really exciting. I uh, was not really a mezcal person for a really long time, and to be honest, it was this podcast that told me the difference. Not last week, but before this podcast, I had no idea really what the difference was between mezcal and tequila. I didn't know that what the difference was between reposado and silver tequila. Even I was really ignorant of all of that. So I was really excited because this pays homage to like the explosiveness, the peachness, this idea of like sweetness and this like savory tartness. The lime kind of rounds everything out. It's delicious, especially in the summer. And it feels like you're in the summer in this post-apocalyptic wasteland that is basically a giant desert in the middle of Australia. So
That's right. Yeah, where water and mother's milk are being rationed. Yeah, you have to get your hydration where you can. If you don't have mezcal, you can swap that for a silver tequila. It's not going to be smoky, but mezcal can get a bit pricey. So if you don't want to go out and grab one of those, or you don't have any on hand and you want to try this, go ahead and try it with a silver tequila. It'll get you in the ballpark, but it's not going to be exactly the same. So definitely give the Peach Vengeance a try. It is one of our new favorites here at Drink the Movies. And speaking of our favorites here at Drink the Movies, we better go ahead and mix another one of these up so we can talk about one of our new favorite franchises, I guess, Mad Max, Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. We'll be right back.
Furiosa! We've come too far.
spoiler warning for Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. If you've not seen this film, and it's likely because it's only been out a few weeks, you should go see it. But we're going to talk about all the things, and there's a lot in this film. There's a lot of answers to questions. There's a lot of spoilers that we're going to give. So you've been warned. If you don't want to hear that, then I suggest you press pause. Don't stop us completely. Go make yourself a peach vengeance because it's delicious. Go watch the film and come back and press play. And then we can chat about it all together.
That's right. Yeah, you might not have had a chance to see it. It has been out for a couple of weeks, but it was just released here in 2024. It was directed by George Miller, again, back in the Mad Max world, and it stars Chris Hemsworth as our new/old enemy, Dementus. Tom Burke is playing Praetorian Jack, who is the mentor who's going to teach us how to be a road warrior, Michaela. I feel like that's important. And Lila Brown and Anya Taylor-Joy are playing Furiosa, both young and older Furiosa there. So, Furiosa, Mad Max Saga is the prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. In that film, we're introduced to the character of Furiosa. Mad Max runs into her right out in the wasteland, and we're gonna find out how she got there. Why she is so good at being, the what is it? It's like the fifth death of the wasteland or something. I don't know. She's or the fifth
Yeah.
coming of the apocalypse. I don't know. Something pretty crazy. Something pretty crazy. And something else that is pretty crazy, Michaela, is George Miller's career. Basically, pretty interesting here. He has 6 Academy Award nominations. He has
Yeah.
one win. He won for Animated Film of the Year for Happy Feet, but he also has a Best Writing nod for Lorenzo's Oil, a Best Writing and Best Picture nominee for Babe. The pig movie Babe. That was George Miller. And also
Yep.
and also the directing and Best Picture nominations for Mad Max Fury Road. So that's quite the gambit, right? Happy Feet, Babe,
Yeah.
Mad Max
Mm-hmm.
Fury Road. This movie where, spoiler, someone gets planted into a peach tree. We're going to get into all that. That is quite the gambit, George Miller. But if you ask someone on the street, you say, "Hey, you sir or madam, tell me about George Miller," they're going to say, "George Miller, that's the Mad Max guy, right? 1979, Mad Max, 1981, Mad Max 2, and 1985, Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome." And then, fast forward 1985 to 2015. So a good, what is that, 30-year gap there to Fury Road in 2015, and then Furiosa just this year. But that's quite the
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. George Miller's something else, man. I mean, someone that can easily like kind of go between like, hey, we're gonna have a talking pig that like goes and like it's a sheep herding pig, okay, or like Happy Feet, like which is a great story of a penguin who can't talk, right? And they all can sing, but he can't, and he can dance instead. It's very like, and it's beautifully animated. Like we should do a mocktail for that at some point. But like, there's that George Miller, and then there's like, I'm gonna hang you by your thumbs in a tree. I'm gonna, create this world that is completely devastating and awful and albeit visually stunning. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very, very strange. Very strange. And I talked to a person recently about George Miller, and you know what they said? That they said that their best directing, in their opinion, their best directing was in Babe 2.
Okay.
Which
Pig
is
in the City.
interesting. Pig, yeah. Uh, and even that one, there's some darkness, but it's not nearly as bad as dark as the Mad Max series. So, really interesting career there. And this 30-year gap, I want to talk a little bit about that because there's some things that happen. I feel like almost like with George Lucas, right? He knew the stories from Star Wars that he wanted to tell, but
Mhm.
he was like, that we don't have the technology to be able to tell the story the way in which I want to tell it. That's something that I've heard said multiple times, and I wonder if George Miller kind of felt the same way, where he had this idea in his head, but
Mhm.
because of the visualizations or whatever, he was like, first of all, it'll never make real audiences because some of this stuff absolutely would have been like an X-rated like
Oh, sure, yeah.
thing, right? Like some of the way that they depict things now are totally okay because we've normalized all this violence. But I wonder if maybe there was that in play, or if you wanted to take some time off to go do Happy Feet and Big. I don't know.
That's
or
that's
Babe. I don't know.
you needed a detox, but yeah, it's safe to say that that Mad Max's Thunderdome is a little bit different than Mad Max's Fury Road, but we're here for all of it. We're here for all of it. But what we're here for today is to talk about Furiosa, this kind of new character we were introduced to in the last film, and we're going to get her story, and we're going to basically start off with her as a youngster, right? So this film is broken down into 5 chapters. And chapter number 1 is the Pole of Inaccessibility. And basically we're introduced to a young Furiosa there. They're picking some peaches out of this tree. But they stumble upon a couple of bikers there. Don't want the word to get out that there is this secret kind of safe place, right? The green place of many mothers, as it's called. They don't want people to know about it and come and ravage this last little bit of refuge in the wastelands
Right.
of Australia.
Yeah. Yeah. What I found interesting about this is they were very concerned with having no witnesses, but also they weren't going to follow them necessarily to see what they had, which I thought was really interesting because they were in a land of already abundantness, right?
Mhm. Right.
The visualization of this first couple of scenes in the green place was really beautiful. The vibrancy of the green was really, it was almost, I don't know, it almost felt animated in a way. And against that rich golden red of the peaches, it really struck home to me like this is this incredibly special place, where it didn't look like there were any men. Maybe I don't understand quite that. There's still some more questions that we have because it is the land of many mothers. There are all these women, and they all seem to have like
That's probably where they're
weapons
able
on
to
them. And
prosper, to be honest.
right. We're in a place where there is no men. Give it to us. We'll take care of the green place. You guys have ruined it. Yeah,
That's true. And
maybe
I
I.
mean, I mean that is true because if you go to the other places, which we're going to get to, there are only like 8 women and they're all locked in a vault, basically. So maybe that is the
Ooh,
contrast there. And I think the other kind of thing that we're establishing here, George Miller is establishing here with this green place, is very much of like a Garden of Eden type of place, and which Furiosa is being birthed. Let's talk about the Pole of Inaccessibility. That is the name of this chapter. The rest of the names of the chapters are a little bit more kind of straightforward and what Furiosa is up to. But the Pole of Inaccessibility, to me, I saw the pole. You think immediately of like the North Pole, or it's something. It's like the furthest point from something, and we're in Australia. Australia largely is a desert, right? Like 99% of Australia is a desert, or I don't know, something crazy like that. I'm totally wrong on that number, but it's a lot of Australia is a desert. So I think that the pole of inaccessibility here, I think represents, the green place. It's this place that no one can get to. And it's the place that Furiosa is going to be literally dragged from as they go in pursuit of these bikers here. And she gets taken away. She gets captured and taken away.
mm. Yeah, that was one thing I with the titles, like I thought I understood all of the others, but this one I was like, do we mean that? Or do we mean like a
A
pole
literal pole.
position? Well, or yeah, or a pole position in racing, or if you're chasing
Mm,
someone and you're giving chase. It was like, because these this biker gang, they grab Furiosa, they tie her up, they put her over, over the saddle, like as if they were riding a horse, right? And they go
Mhm.
to Dementus's kind of place. And the mom, who's amazing in this film, she picks them off like one after another, but one of them makes it. And I kind of thought maybe that was it, maybe because she didn't get them all. And so, of course, when Furiosa is presented to Dementus, everybody is trying to take credit for finding her, and she's very clean. I mean, she's very well kept. She's got great teeth. Like, they look at her fingernails to see how healthy she is, because apparently this is like now a radioactive wasteland where everybody's all messed up. And all the new people are like damaged in some way, all the new children or whatever. And so Dementus is like, where did she come from? And she won't talk. And the poor guy that brought her in, he's not a poor guy, he's a bad guy, but his throat's been cut. So like no one can tell anybody where this green place is. And Furiosa's not talking. And so that's kind of maybe was what I was thinking of with the pole of inaccessibility. But then
Okay.
we get to a little bit further in this chapter where Furiosa tries to escape, and her mom tries to take her back to the green place. And they realize that they really can't go back because their tracks will be covered, or they will be tracked. It's really easy to see bike tracks in the sand unless you have a sandstorm covering them up. So there's this really terrible scene where Furiosa's mom tells her that, she needs to go back home, and the mom's going to stay and try and fight as many of them off as possible. And it's really awful because, of course, they catch her. I don't know if then I thought maybe the pole was like that kind of chasm where she like the bodies start to like build a wall.
Oh, yeah.
Like, right. And so now it's like, you shall not pass this path. I don't know.
Yeah, Furiosa's mom is pretty good with the sniper rifle, I will say. Um, yeah, that's possible. And she does tell Furiosa that she has to, go up on this ridge. I think she tells her to wait like 30 days or something, or a couple of weeks or something before she carries on back home as she goes and tries to fight them off. I want to talk about the introduction of Dementus here, is played by Chris Hemsworth. I really like they're kind of sitting in this tent right as Furiosa is getting dragged into it, and Dementus is sitting on the ground. He's got like this white kind of like shawl over him. He's got like a teddy bear strapped to his back, and you've got the History Man, who's played by George Shevstov, who has an amazing amount of tattoos. I guess it's basically like recorded history, just
Mm.
tattooed onto himself, and he's giving him this lesson about this motorcycle, right? That's kind of on display there, like this art piece of a motorcycle. And that's kind of one of the things about Mad Max, is all of these different gangs and things like worship these machines as they're almost gods, because that's basically how they're able to survive with these machines. So he's giving them that, and at least when I was watching it, I thought that he was giving like a lesson to like a little kid, and then it stands up and it's Chris Hemsworth right there standing up. Thor stands there and turns around, and he is the leader here of this. He takes a look at Furiosa and says, "You look like you're in pretty good shape." The organic mechanic Angus Sampson takes a look at her and even says so. Organic mechanic, best name in movies. I think that's a pretty good name.
That's awesome.
And at this point, Furiosa is along for the ride. Unfortunately, has to be captured in order to start becoming, I guess, who she is meant to be, or who she is destined to be. Uh, but the pole of inaccessibility concludes, and we are taken to lessons from the wasteland, Michaela.
Yeah. So it's really weird. Chris Hemsworth is amazing in Dementus. So this could easily be my favorite film that he's ever done. I definitely think it's the biggest stretch of a character. Look, I love Thor as much as the next girl, but he's horrible. He's got this teddy bear attached to him, and he's like, "Oh, do you want this teddy bear? It belonged to one of mine." And there's some foreshadowing there. He is both like fatherly and gentle, and then completely like demented and cruel. He makes Furiosa watch her mother basically be crucified and set on fire. It's pretty awful. And it could be so much worse. Like I George Miller has this great way of making you want to shut your eyes, but being more afraid that if you shut your eyes, your imagination is going to make it worse than what you see on
Mm-hmm.
the screen. It's pretty brilliant the way that he shows us that, and also terrifying. But she becomes kind of his daughter. He keeps telling everybody that that's his daughter,
Little D.
and little D, yeah, which is again, it would be cute if he wasn't so crazy. It's like, let me take you under your wing.
Well,
And
you mentioned us wanting to close our eyes, right? Even Dementus, he takes that teddy bear who presumably was one of his own children that he's carrying around there, gives it to Furiosa, kind of during that act of killing his mother, and he tells Furiosa to close her eyes, but she doesn't. She keeps her eyes wide open, which is really kind of her first, I guess, lesson from the wasteland, right? Is brutality gets you everywhere in this world.
yeah, 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 he's horrible. I mean, we thought Morton Joe was awful. Dementus is pretty bad. But then we get to this point where Furiosa is going to try and figure out a way to get home. So she's got this really interesting like pen. She starts to create like the star chart on her left arm. I immediately am like, what happens next? Because in Fury Road, she doesn't have a left arm. So I'm like, great. Are we? What? Oh no! So you're left with this like foreboding like sense of fear. The rest of the film that we're going to watch like a child's hand be cut off. That doesn't happen, thankfully. Something worse happens, maybe. I don't know. But she starts to kind of hatch a plan. She's going to figure out a way to get home, no matter how long it takes, because that's the promise that she made to her mother. But in the meantime, Dementus and his biker horde, someone tells they meet a war boy, right? One of those characters that are covered in white that spray their mouth with chrome, that want to be witnessed as they die, like
Yeah.
this really strange cult thing that they've got going. But he says, hey, there's this place, it's called the Citadel, it's another wasteland settlement, it's got water, there's green things, and Dementus immediately thinks that that's the green place, which is awesome because Furiosa is not going to say anything, right? So
Right.
they make their way to the Citadel. There's this really interesting kind of moment where when they finally get there, where now the history man has this really cool like microphone and like around his neck that they're kind of Dementus is talking to, because he doesn't know where Morton Joe is. Because if you remember, the Citadel is kind of this big, tall, like mesa, and Morton Joe's somewhere inside it. And I just loved the way that they created these kind of three wasteland settlements that we learned about in Fury Road, right? There was the Citadel, there was the Bullet Farm, there was Gastown, and all of them have very distinct personalities. They have very like distinct pieces about them, but they all looked the same as they had 10 years before, which is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Dementus's crew kind of rolls in right after they find the Citadel, and they go, and it's so like stark because Dementus's crew rolls in with, I don't know, it looks like like a couple of thousand people right into the Citadel. They go and they start talking over that megaphone thing, asking for the leader of that, who we know is Immortan Joe, and kind of slowly but steadily, all of these the war boys start pulling out, all the people start pulling out, and you realize that Dementus is couple thousand strong is no match for this like tens of thousands strong that Immortan Joe has. And basically Immortan Joe's mouthpiece here, I don't remember his name offhand, who that is. Do you know? I don't know.
I know his sons, Scrotus and
Yeah. Scrotus and something. But yeah, his mouthpiece, Immortan Joe's mouthpiece, basically tells them to just pick one of the war boys, and they do, and he then just immediately just jumps to his death. And Immortan Joe's cronies there go on to basically say that it didn't matter who you picked, they're all going to do that because they all worship Immortan Joe as a god, and basically get out of here, right? We're going to go ahead and attack you. I really like kind of the set piece of this, they have all these cranes that just start swinging around and grabbing like motorcycles off of the ground and stuff, and getting them out of there. And Dementus is able to kind of tuck tail and run and get out of there. He's left a little bit fuming and needs to come up with a new plan. He's not going to be able to attack the Citadel directly, so maybe Gastown is the best way.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting to me because this is kind of like a Trojan horse technique that he uses, right? He goes in to this rig that's headed up to Gastown. And the way this works, they're far enough apart where you can't see each other. They use like these old it's very steampunk. They use these old binoculars to try and see like smoke coming out of certain areas, but they can't really see each other. They're that far
Yeah.
apart through the
They look
desert.
like Star Wars binoculars.
Yeah, they sure do. They sure do. But they use this Trojan horse technique where they bring this rig in. They staged it correctly. They where they got people dressed up like war boys, and then they end up killing the war boys to make it look real, to get them in the gate. Then once they shut the gate, they go in and this guy is the guy who's running things is like making this beautiful painting on the side. He's got this ring on. They cut his hand off or his finger off, and they send it over back to Immortan Joe. And they're like, all right, well, now we own Gastown. So do you want to give us more food, and you want to give us more water, and you want to give us all the things? And Immortan Joe is kind of caught in this space where he's like, what do we do? So he asked the banker guy, right? Who looks creepy and gross. He's got that weird nose. But it's like an eyepiece. He's got a gross foot. He's got this weird nose thing that's covering his nose, probably because he's, I don't know, leper. I have no idea. It's really gross. And they say, well, what are we going to do? So they trade. And Immortan Joe says, well, that's fine. I'm going to take your daughter, though. And Dementus is like, that's my kid. You can't do that. And of course, then we hear Furiosa say the first words that she's said, which is like, no, he's not my father. And so Immortan Joe's like, cool. Well, you look great. She's a child, but he's like, you look pretty healthy. I'm gonna take you and put you in my vaults of women that we use to try and like propagate the species. And it's real gross because she's probably like 10.
It is real gross. She's pretty young for sure, and she gets put into that vault, and we've seen the vault kind of before, but she is in there. She is introduced, I guess, to the other women here under the care of Immortan Joe, and we meet a couple of other people. We meet Immortan Joe's sons, right? So we've got Scrotus, who's played by Josh Hellman, and we've got Rectus, who's played by Nathan Jones. Now, Rectus takes a bit of a liking to Furiosa here. Goes and grabs her out of the vault one night, and that's going to prompt Furiosa to basically have to take on her new identity as Furiosa. I don't know that Furiosa is ever really called by name until later of the film, but this is definitely when she's making the transition, right? And she's finally getting her last lesson here, and she cuts off her hair. She had pretty long hair, and now it's cut off to basically like a shaved head there. She's still hiding kind of this little peach pit that she'd been hiding in her hair. She's been holding on to that this whole time, as a memory of her the green place there, but cuts off her hair and is able to give the slip to Erectus and hides out. And at this point, Furiosa has taken on her new identity, and it's going to be up to her to survive in this place, right? Things were bad with Dementus, and things don't seem to be any better here under Immortan Joe. So she's going to kind of take on this new persona now as she grows up, and we start to see her age. Some time has passed, and now she is basically in hiding as like a teenage boy who is working kind of in like the chop shop, I guess, basically for Immortan Joe. And we go from the lessons of the wasteland to the stowaway.
Yeah. So she's living this really tough life, right? She's small, and so she's useful. There's this really great scene where they're trying to bring up this, because they're on this mesa, right? And they're bringing up this car, and it gets loose on one side, and they need somebody to go and re-finagle it with these change, and Furiosa is tiny, and so she's able to jump on and make that happen. And she immediately gets looked at in a different way. She is pretty fearless, but she doesn't speak. She dresses like a boy so that she is not found out. And so she works in this role with Immortan Joe running the Citadel, and then Dementus running Gastown for like 10 years, right? Trying to kind of establish herself in the ranks. She's still in hiding, so she's a stowaway. She doesn't speak, so everybody just thinks she's a mute teenage boy. And they're building this war rig, right? That is basically the supply tanker where they can go to Bullet Farm or to the gas town and get their supplies, and in exchange for all of the luscious green plants. And so that's where we first meet Praetorian Jack, who's played by the amazing Tom Burke. And I want to gush on him a little bit. We haven't seen enough of him. I saw him in, he was Cormoran Strike in the Strike series that is amazing. He was in Living. He's been in a couple of other things that we've seen recently. We need more Tom Burke in our lives. Tom Burke, please continue to act because he's amazing. Yeah. I love it. He's got this really cool, like, he looks like a Mad Max character at the beginning, right? He's got this jacket on him. He's like, got this scar on the side of his face. And he's the one who gets chosen to drive the war rig.
Yeah, Praetorian Jack there. He looks kind of like an in-between like Mel Gibson's Mad Max and Tom Hardy's Mad Max, right? He looks like a kind of like half step there in between the two. Yeah, and the war rig is amazing. I like there's like kind of a montage almost. It's not really like a montage, but it's kind of like a montage of them building the war rig, which I think is really interesting because we see a lot of these crazy like cars and motorcycles and contraptions, but we don't see them being built a lot in this world. So I thought that was pretty neat. So I liked that. And I like, kind of coming off from the lesson into the stowaway when Furiosa basically is promoted to a mechanic and she's given those gloves, which is basically her ticket to hide her identity, right? The big like tell away for her right then was that tattoo that she'd given herself on her arm. So if she's able to cover that up, then she's going to be able to play this out, right? To figure out her way to get out of there. And when the war rig is ready to go out on the road, she comes up with a bit of a plan, right? She needs to get out of there, so she's going to quite literally be a stowaway. I really love the kind of this image. She has like a motorcycle like chained to the bottom of this thing that no one can see because behind these wheels there's like, I don't know, like 1,000 like tires on this thing because it's like a mile long, which is pretty epic. And she's just kind of hanging there when they go under attack. And apparently this war rig kind of attack, the scene, it took like 80 days to film or something because it's absolutely insane because you've got the cars and stuff like we remember from the last time, but there's also now like those like paraglider things and like hang gliders and all sorts of crazy stuff. They're like what they're like parasails like off the back of like trucks, like all sorts of this wild stuff is going on. The visualizations here are pretty cool. I don't know that I liked this particular chase as much as like the big one in Fury Road, or maybe it's because you're like desensitized to it because Fury Road was so epic. You're like, meh, he's done this before, but it is still really epic and it's really cool. But unfortunately, I guess, or fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know. Morton Joe's men there on this rig all get picked off one by one, leaving Praetorian Jack and Furiosa.
Yeah, it's a pretty epic. I mean, it's pretty epic. One of the things that I did want to talk about was how they made it old and yet new, because they had to do something in this chase that was different. And I was not worried. I was wondering how they were going to do that. And what they did was created like these parachutes, right? That it was like, because in Fury Road, they've got these boys, the war boys are on these poles that kind of go back and forth. And so they can go from car to car while they're driving 87,000 miles down this desert road. That was kind of neat. I don't know how they did it, but that was kind of neat. And I really love like the first time we see Furiosa in like all of her glory, because she has grown her hair back. There's a moment where, Praetorian Jack sees her and her hair is kind of flowing everywhere, because they've grabbed her cap. and he now knows that she's a woman, and that not only is she a woman, but she's incredibly capable of keeping the war rig safe. It ends up being just the two of them at the end of it when they're the survivors. And Furiosa is still trying to get home, right? So she takes her first opportunity to try and carjack the rig itself, which doesn't go well. And she wants to return to the green place, but Jack is, he's been around a bit. He's much more cutthroat, and he's like, nah, that's okay. And he just leaves her in the middle of the desert. I wasn't prepared for that. And so I was like, well, what's going to happen now? Because she's completely on her own. But thankfully, Jack changes his mind a little bit. And he's like, look, he comes back to her and he says, you're really, he recognizes like the potential for her to be like the next Praetorian, or like his partner. And he promises her that he will train her to escape the Citadel if she helps him, because he now has to rebuild his whole crew. He can't go anywhere because they will just hunt him down. And she wouldn't invite him anyway, because, yeah. But so they kind of forge this mutually beneficial kind of partnership here. And it's tentative. You don't know how deep that's going to go until a little bit later. But that's kind of the beginning of their kind of tentative friendship.
Yeah, that's right. It's very much a beneficial relationship for them, because Furiosa still has a lot to learn, right? She's learned kind of about the way the wasteland works. She's kind of learned how to navigate it now, but she really needs to learn is how to be a road warrior, as it were. And that takes us into the next chapter of Homeward, right? And she's going to go with Praetorian Jack, help rebuild that, basically become the second in command to Praetorian Jack's crew here, running this rig, delivering supplies, getting supplies, all of that stuff. Praetorian Jack does make her the offer then, eventually. I guess, he feels like he's taught her as much as she can, or he knows that she's probably just going to up and leave or escape, or I don't know, kill him and take the rig or something. So he makes her the offer, right? He's like, I'll get you a couple of motorcycles. You can go, all the supplies that you need. You can go. You can be on your way back to this place that you're trying to get to. Just give me a couple of days, right? So that's all it's going to take, and you will be free. But unfortunately, if you're Furiosa, Dementus is still a thorn in our side, because he decides now that Gastown is not enough. He's going to go and take over the bullet farm, because we find this out because Immortan Joe is going there, getting ready to go to Gastown to go to battle with Dementus, basically. So they send Praetorian Jack off to the bullet farm to say, go get every bullet you can get, because we're about ready to go to war. But when they get to bullet farm, bad news, Dementus is already there.
Yeah. That scene's really tough, because you get there, and again, the cinematography here is amazing. I love the art direction of Bullet Farm. We hadn't really seen Bullet Farm before in the daytime, so that was kind of neat. So that was kind of cool. I really liked that. I was also terrified because you see a dog with like a foot in its mouth. I think it's a dog, and you're like, oh, what happened here? And
seems bad. It's a lot of like Ghost Town vibes when they pull in.
Yeah, because no one's there. But Dementus has preempted them, and he is ready. He's ready for them, and this is a really hard scene to watch, because you don't know how it's going to go, but you got a feeling that this might be when things really take a turn for the worse for Furiosa. She still has both arms, and in the back of my head, I'm like, that's going to change at some point. And it's really hard. It's really tough. There's a lot of kind of these towers that fall over. So Furiosa and Jack barely escape this kind of ambush that happens. And it ends with this big car crash. Furiosa, her arm is hurt. It's still on her body, but it's really hurt. But they're both kind of caught by Dementus, and he eventually catches them both. And we've seen, there was an earlier scene where Dementus made, like, I don't know, he made all of his people like fight over these bikes that were chained to a person, and then drove off to like continue torturing the person on the ground, and that was pretty awful. And you
Hmm.
know that this isn't going to go well. This scene was one of the worst, hardest for me to watch, even after seeing kind of the crucifixion scene with Furiosa's mom, because you just really are rooting for Pretoria Jack to somehow get out of this, but they torture him to death. They kind of drag him. They let these dogs like, run after him being chained to this car. Furiosa is like strung up by her arm that's already damaged. And Dementus kind of sits there to watch the whole thing for a minute.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely more than a minute because the sun goes down. It's like the evening when he finally decides to call quits to this thing. They've
Mm.
been, dragging Troy and Jack around behind that motorcycle. It's very awful. It's really neat looking because it looks like they had about 1,000 motorcycles actually doing this, driving around kind of in this circle and
Mm.
things. But Dementus, hops down. He goes around back to where Furiosa was strung up, and just like a wounded animal, right? She sacrifices the arm to get out of there, and she is off on her way to get back to a Morton Joe, and that's what she does, right? She gets back to a Morton Joe. She basically gets back into the Citadel. She pronounces herself as Praetorian Furiosa. Now she goes up and has the meeting with them, and they decide that they are going to war. Furiosa has a demand. It's that Dementus is hers when they capture him, and Morton Joe doesn't really respond to that in any sort of way. And we are on to the 40-day war. So we get a little bit of a montage of some war going on, some more, attacks, stuff like that. We get the very cool like guitar player guy on the front of that one war rig, which is pretty cool to revisit that and stuff like that. But eventually, Furiosa has had enough. She needs to get out of there. She needs to go, and she finds a real beater of a car that one of the mechanics has made for himself. It only has like three wheels, so they end up like tying like a big like log to it, so it can drag itself through the desert. And she comes upon the war party here for a Morton Joe, steals a pretty rad car, and is finally going to go and have her final confrontation with Dementus.
Yeah. This was interesting because the 40-day war, we talk about it. It only happens like in a montage. I think that was kind of an interesting choice that the director made. But
Agree. Yeah.
Dementus is kind of left on his own, right? And after chasing him in her really poor car, and then her less poor car. I mean, none of the cars are in like amazing shape. You don't know how long it's been really after cars were made. You've got this really tough scene where Furiosa finally catches up to Dementus, and then you've got this kind of monologue that Dementus gives, and he basically tells her, he's taunting her, but he's also trying to talk some sense into her, and I think, and say, look, there's nothing that you're going to be able to do to me that's going to take away or make better what I have done to you.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting because in that scene where they've got Praetorian Jack chained and he's being dragged around, right? He sits there to watch it. And then, when the sun goes down and it's been hours, it's only been a minute on camera. His eyes are kind of red. He looks really sorrowful when he finally says, okay, that's enough, right? I feel like this speech that he gives at the end when he tells Furiosa that vengeance is not going to make her whole. His face kind of takes the same shape as it did at the end of when he's torturing Praetorian Jack. Like,
Mhm.
and it makes you wonder, like, how did Dementus become Dementus? Which is interesting because this is all this circle of life stuff that tends to happen with these like really big epic tales that we get told, right? We wanted to know what happened to Furiosa and how she became to be, and now I'm like obsessed with figuring out how Dementus came to be, like who hurt
Mhm.
his children, and what is that, why, how did that happen, and that why does he carry around like a teddy bear that was one of his kids, right? How did he become the monster that he is? And he's it's again, he's almost trying to be like a father figure when he realizes that it's her, and he's like, little D, you came back, I've been waiting for years. It's really messed up because it's like, dude, you're horrible, why would she be happy to see you? But he does try to talk to her about, hey, this isn't going to make it any better. And also but you don't know if he's saying that because he just wants to continue to keep his life, or if he's actually trying to help her, like, come to terms with this horribleness that's happened to her.
Sure, yeah, and that's kind of the interesting thing about Dementus. We'll talk about this here in a minute once we kind of wrap up the movie, but Dementus basically molds Furiosa into the person she needs to be the savior in the next film, basically, right? So it's yeah, it's very, very interesting. I really like kind of the kind of the idea, the way that George Miller visualized like kind of this pursuit. Dementus, sends like all of the motorcycles off on scatters. So you got Furiosa up there with the sniper rifle, kind of picking these people off before she eventually catches up with Dementus and finds him in his like tent and asleep, and takes the bullets out of his gun and stuff like that, and then is just pursuing him in this car, right? So Dementus can kind of walk. He starts walking towards her, and it starts going in reverse. I really like that. And then they have their little confrontation there. Furiosa uses her new little arm that she's built for herself to cut that teddy bear off of Dementus, and they have their final confrontation. And then I really liked that it goes into like this mythic bit where this narrator comes on, and it's like or it's like, I think it's the history man maybe is who's doing it, is talking about what happened to Dementus, and there's lots of stories and fables as to what Furiosa did to him. And it kind of goes through this montage, but it eventually ends with Furiosa basically turning Dementus into this peach tree, right? I guess plants the peach tree through him there, and you'll kind of see her taking a peach then at the end of the film. I guess her Beyond Vengeance section here has come to fruition, for lack of a better term there, and that's pretty much where the film ends, right? We see her picking a peach from this peach tree, and then cutting it up into a couple of pieces, and taking it to the brides that we're introduced to in the next film, into Mad Max Fury Road. And that's kind of where it ends. I really liked then too that it goes through kind of like a montage, like a it's like a previously on, except it's like a next time on Mad
Right.
Max, right? And it kind of goes through some of like the highlights of Mad Max Fury Road there as the credits get rolling. But that's where it ends, right? We're left with Furiosa now as the Furiosa that we know for the next film, and we got a little bit of history about her, but left wondering some other things. And I don't know. Potential for more Mad Max stuff. I don't know how many of these George Miller has in his head, but I think we'll take them. Come on, George.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, he's like 80, so I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. But this was really, I don't know. I really liked I really liked the way this ended, in that the kind of final confrontation I thought was really great. I think that, to me, it felt a little quick, because again, we wanted to see that. We wanted to see something horrible happen to Dementus, and it wasn't as satisfying, because they were like, there's this idea that maybe he got shot, maybe she dragged him around, just as he had done to Praetorian Jack. And then at the end, with the whole scene of him being literally, it's very Hannibal-esque. I mean, like a tree growing out of his core. It's like, oh my gosh.
Not for kids.
Not for kids, not for kids. And
Barely for adults.
I don't, I don't know. She'd kept that peach pit in her mouth for like 20 years. It must have been like a very, very special peach pit to continue to grow. But I found that piece, I don't know. I like the dichotomy that you gave, where you said that, if it hadn't been for Dementus, Furiosa wouldn't have been who she was. And we see snippets of pieces that fit so beautifully into Fury Road, which had happened, it'd been filmed 9 years before, or 10 years before. But because she gets to see that vault where the girls are held,
Hmm.
and that they're trying to have babies. And I mean, there's that one scene where they have the baby and it's like, oh, it looks okay, but it's got four legs. Like,
Right.
it's really a problem. And she's seen how like Immortan Joe works. And in order to get back to her green place, she's going to have to stop these people. She's going to have to figure out a way to um to do that before she can get to the green place. She's not going to be able to just go and escape, because someone will find her and then they will destroy her land of milk and honey. So she's got to do something to ensure that they can't do that.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There are a couple of things. Obviously we knew that this was going to, look fantastic. The action was going to be very bombastic. We knew that Anya Taylor-Joy was going to be, really good in the role, and she was. I was surprised then after, towards the end of the film, at the Beyond Vengeance section, I think when she, cuts her hair off again, and like how much she looked like Charlize Theron then at the end when she had the short hair going into the
Mm-hmm.
Fury Road version of Furiosa. I thought that that was pretty good. I had a little bit of issue with the character of Dementus, in that I really liked Dementus. Chris Hemsworth was great in it. He was he was a little bit too likable, I think.
Mm.
In a certain sense, like
Yeah.
I never like got on the same like vengeance level as Furiosa did, and I don't know if it's because Dementus as a character or Chris Hemsworth's portrayal of him was too likable, or we didn't get enough of like Furiosa and like her mother to like the balance was off for me just a little bit. In that
Yeah.
sense, like I never felt like the same level of vengeance that she did. So I thought that that was something. I also didn't get um like the bad enough stuff, I guess, from Immortan Joe either from that sense, because we're meant to like absolutely hate this person by the time Fury Road comes around. Immortan
Mm.
Joe, and I mean he's not a good dude, right? He's got those ladies locked up, but we don't really see like that much else of the bad side of a Morton
Yeah.
Joe. So it just to me like the scale of justice, I guess, for all of these characters was just a little bit off, at least, kind of in my eyes, and maybe that was meant to be the case. Um because I don't know, like it felt very deliberate in the story that was being told, but yeah, just to me, like I don't know, like the levels of vengeance and revenge and stuff was a little bit off for me. I thought, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you there, because in Fury Road, you are filled with a sense of foreboding, like dread, with when you see a Morton Joe be put together right at the very beginning.
Hmm.
I have no idea where that comes from Furiosa. Maybe there's going to be more to that story, but the way in which it was filmed, where now, at the end of Furiosa, you see kind of this next, on the next episode,
Right.
where we see these montage pieces from Fury Road. It looks like there's not a whole lot of time, but then thinking about it, they had to rebuild Bullet Farm. They had to put the banker over at Gastown. Like they had our the banker at Bullet Farm, and then the other guy who's running Gastown. Like that had to have taken some time, because
Hmm.
those characters were in the Morton Joe's, like,
Inner circle. Yeah.
inner circle, but they weren't there yet. They weren't at the helms of those places yet. So um it had to have taken a little bit of time, and maybe that this sets us up for more sequels. I definitely think that 40 years or 40 days war could be a series, right? Because
Hmm.
we go over it so easily, or so quickly in the film. I don't know. I loved though that Dementus wasn't evil enough. Like, I found that to be really unsettling, because on one hand, he was like a dad. He
Hmm.
really seemed really kind, but he was also the guy that was absolutely going to take the one person you had trusted, um, after your mother, after he, crucified her and set her on fire. He was going to take this other person and like torture them to death in front of your face. Like, And then he would call you his little child afterwards. I mean, he was so, I don't know. I loved that he was kind and also like terrifying and brutal at the same time. I loved it. I hated it in the sense that I didn't like the character, but I loved it in that he nailed that piece to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you see kind of that growth from him too, right? They have their kind of initial confrontation with Morton Joe. And Dementus learns that, to get on top, you're going to have to be able to sacrifice your own people. And then, when they go and take Gastown and he shoots one of his own men, and kind of his right hand was like, "What are you doing?" And Dementus, basically is like, "Well, that's how it is now." So, kind of going forward. So that was interesting. I guess you could look at the timeline progress, because at the end of the film, Furiosa picks that peach. So however long peach pit takes to grow into a fruit bearing tree, I guess you can use that as your timeline there
Oh, good point.
in between films. So but no, I thought that it was really good. We talked a little bit about, coming out of the theater. We just saw this a couple of nights ago. I really liked the story and the world building, and kind of like building like this mythology around Furiosa. Like, I liked the story in this way better than I liked the Fury Road story, which I thought was pretty thin, was mostly, this visual spectacle. And it is a masterpiece of visual spectacle, for sure. But I liked the story elements of this a lot better than that. I do think that the film felt just a little bit long. Even though I still was left wanting to see more of like the 40-day war, just for another couple of minutes. It did feel a little bit long to me, but this was pretty good. It was definitely a worthy, I guess, precursor to this current generation of Mad Max stories that we're in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. I think if you like Fury Road, you're gonna like Furiosa. You're gonna like at least most of it, right? I think that the story is way better the second time around. And I love that it also leaves gaps to be filled. I hope this is not the end that we see. I hope there's more to this universe, which is interesting because I always thought that at the end of Fury Road, if they were going to make another one, that it was going to be focused on Furiosa and how she came to be. I don't know if that was already in the works or what, but I just felt that, I feel like I always knew that was going to be a thing. I'd love to see kind of the backstory of how Dementus came to be. I'd love to see a backstory of Jack Praetorian, or Praetorian Jack, to see how he got to be there. We see a person that looks like Mad Max as he's watching her years before go across the desert. And so that's kind of interesting, because you don't really know, this is a Mad Max saga, but we don't really see Mad Max much in this film at all. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. It's worth your time for sure.
That's right, absolutely. So definitely let us know out there if you make it out to see Furiosa, or if you were a fan of the Mad Max Fury Road, or if you're chomping at the bit to get more information about the Mad Max, the Wasteland. I guess that had previously been announced or teased. I don't know if we'll get that. So hopefully, fingers crossed there. So let us know all of that. And definitely let us know if you make yourself a peach vengeance. If you make that cocktail, please send us a picture of it. We would love to see it. Or any other Mad Max cocktails you got up to. We had a couple of Mad Max cocktails at the theaters. So maybe we're going to go over to Patreon and chat about that. That's patreon.com/drinktomovies. You can go there for bonus content, extra episodes, hangouts, all that good stuff. It's a really great way to support the podcast, and we appreciate our patrons over there so much. If you want to connect with us, you can do that on our social media. It's at Drink the Movies on Instagram and X and Threads and Blue Sky, and facebook.com/drinkthemovies. You can go to the website, www.drinkthemovies.com, for episode recaps, pictures of our cocktails, the recipes, all that stuff. Link to the shop there, where you can get some Drink the Movies merchandise. Appreciate everyone who's checked out the shop. And appreciate everyone who listens to the podcast. Michaela, if you want to listen to the podcast, give us some reviews, get us out there for more people in the world. Where can they do that?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, anywhere where Spotify podcasts are distributed and supported. Whatever you're listening to us on now, there is a subscribe button. If you're liking what you're hearing, please press that button. If you're really liking what you're hearing, give us a 5-star review. find us on all the social medias. It really helps us get all the Drink the Movie stuff out there.
Absolutely. So that is going to wrap it up here for Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time on
Drink
the
the Movies.
movies. Mad Max something.
Yeah. The Chris Hemsworth's nose made it. It was the best part of that whole thing.
His nose. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, the first in the preview, I didn't even know it was him.
Oh, well, fair enough. Fair enough. The Organic Mechanic.
Best name ever.